I learned that like even though I struggle to express myself out loud, I can really do it through writing. And it became my safe space, like where I could say whatever I want freely. And that's when I realized I'm actually good at expressing myself, like just in my own way.
This is People and Their Poems, a podcast about the poems that make a difference in our world. People and Their Poems is presented by Ornog Mountain Publishing. Thanks for joining us today.
Welcome to People and Their Poems podcast. My name is Sandy Carlson. I'm your host, and I'm here today with Pavan Pillapalem, a sophomore at the Connecticut IB Academy in East Hartford. Pavan is the second place winner of the Decaro Poetry Competition hosted by the Connecticut Poetry Society, and his award-winning poem was titled The Things I Remember. And I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today, Pavan, because I think it's really important to hear about young poets and how you develop your poetic voice and where you see yourself going as a poet. So thank you for taking the time, a very busy time of the school year, to have this conversation. All right. So would you talk to us a little bit about you as a poet? How long have you been writing poetry? In a couple minutes, I'm going to ask you to read The Things I Remember, but one of the many, many striking things about that poem is how mature and how wise it is. And I know as a writer, that just doesn't happen. It's a cultivated craft. Could you talk to us about how you came to poetry and how you hone your craft?
Yep. So I haven't been a poet for that long, mainly since freshman year. We actually started writing poems. And eighth grade, like English wasn't my strongest point since like our program wasn't that good back in middle school. But now, like ninth grade, we did like a lot of work with English and like all the rhyme schemes and stuff, all the literary devices. And this year is like the first year I've actually like written poems by myself, not as like assignments or anything.
Can you talk about a poet or a collection of poems that has made an impression on you as you've been working on your craft?
Yep. So the first book we read freshman year was called The Poet X, and it was telling like the story of like a girl and how she navigated like teenage life and stuff. And I think that's what like it didn't really inspire me, but like that's what showed me what poems could really do, like how they can express things. So that was kind of the start of where like my poetry journey began.
Got it. So is The Poet X, is it like a novel told through poetry?
Yeah, I think it is novel. It's a novel like with like a bunch of poems, and it's about this girl and like I don't remember the full plot, but like it was her navigating like her teenage struggles and like I think it was like a lower class neighborhood or something of that sort.
Oh, that's cool. And as a high school teacher, I know that novels told through poetry, it's its own little subgenre right now, and a lot of kids like them because they move fairly quickly and because there's a rhythm to it that they can kind of get into. It just moves the story along, and it resonates with kids for that too. Um, did you try writing your own autobiographical poems or capturing autobiography through your poetry?
Yeah, mainly this year I started. Last year it was more poems towards like topics or books that we've read. Like from the Poet X, we had to make our own type of poem that's like similar to it in some way. But mainly they're mostly original poems about you. Like last year, I'm not really sure, but we this year we did an identity poem. So this year is mainly where I started writing poems about myself and like my life.
Got it. That's really wonderful that you have English teachers that make that genre available to you as a way to learn and to communicate. Um, what was it like handing in those first identity poems to your teacher
Um,
based on all that?
At first, I didn't do so well with the poems because like it was a new thing to me and like there were websites where you can make it rhyme, but I was like confused how I could make it rhyme. Like the ends of it, like it didn't really flow with me at the start. It was really difficult. But like once it picked up and like once I learned that not all poems have to rhyme, like it just has to tell a story. It actually got going for me. So
Got it. So just to put it in perspective, ninth grade, you read the poet X. You're kind of
mhm,
using that as a model for your own poetry writing. Teachers are introducing you to literary devices and poetic devices.
mhm.
You're kind of using those poems as models. It's touch and go. Um, but you hung in there and you got to a place where you were experiencing some success as a poet. How did you know your poems were successful?
How did I know?
Mm-hmm.
I got feedback from like my friends, like they read my poems. And we also like break down poems a lot in this class, like all the literary devices, what the like significance of them is. So sometimes I would just read them by myself, be like, where can I add more stuff or like where can I cut stuff down? So mainly just like reading it and people like, of course, when you get feedback, though, you'll know if it's like good or bad. Like my friends, they would sometimes read my poems and they'd be like, okay, this part is good. You could work on this part. But yeah, it's mainly that.
It's a big deal to offer your writing, especially
Mhm.
poetry. It's not like, can you look at my essay about
Yeah.
such and such a thing? It is deeply personal. How did you get to a place where you could trust your friends to look at your work and accept their feedback?
Yeah. I mean, my friends, they also like some of them like writing, but mostly they're just bored in class. So I'm just like, okay, can you look at this real quick? But my poems aren't, they are like personal, but they're not that deeply personal where I feel uncomfortable sharing them. So it's just mainly that.
So it sounds like you have a real knack for striking a balance in terms of the content, the structure, and your audience. So they're also writing poems, or is this you going beyond the assignment and
No,
writing your own
I
stuff?
think it's just me.
Just oh my goodness. So, Pavan, would you read your prize-winning poem and maybe a
Yeah.
couple more that we can kind of talk about what
Oh yeah.
after?
Also, I want to add to the previous question. Like,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
like a writing workshop in our school, so I don't really go to it, but mainly where I got the Linda Caro poetry contest was from there, and like all the other ones. So I want to thank them, and yeah, they also give good feedback there, but I've just been busy, so I couldn't go to them. My Linda Caro second place poem is called "The Things That Remember." Here it goes. I arrived in June, airport still clinging to me. The recycled breath of strangers, the metallic hush of departures, stitched into my sleeves. The porch steps remembered first, creaking in the same old places. Inside my grandmother sat in the morning light. Sun pulled in her hair like a window into another decade. Who are you? She asked softly, as if the door was closing on me. I stood between the boy I had been and the man she could no longer name. I wanted to tell her, your grandson, the boy in the photograph, but the look in her eyes stopped me. This was the woman who woke at 6, scrubbed floors till they shone, sorted letters each by sender, stirred breakfast with the same wooden spoon. She'd carried through 6 decades, through every morning of her life. Even now, in the quiet of the room, her hands moved as they always had, slicing a mango, bright, tender, glowing. Its scent rising like a memory trying to find its way back. Each piece placed carefully as if it's mapping someone she once loved. So I sat beside her and said quietly, just visiting. She nodded and the house seemed to exhale, walls settling around us, as if they remembered who she was. Even though she had misplaced my name, her hands knew how to slice a mango, how to fold the morning into warmth. I felt the presence of small, bright things in the room. The mango, the dusted table, the sunlight spilling through the same window. The things that remembered me, the things that remembered us, and the things that remembered.
It's such a breathtaking poem. I'm, listening to you and I'm writing phrases down and I'm drawing little pictures so I can capture the imagery before I go to the next piece. Um, Autobiographical? Did you go visit your grandma? And
Yeah.
that's
So it was on a trip to India, basically.
Mhm.
Over the summer, over the summer.
So that moment when you look in her eye
Mhm.
and you're more compassionate than anything because you realize memory isn't
Yeah.
serving her anymore. It's such a beautiful moment and such a beautiful poem, and it just so wisely captures how the body remembers things and the routines of physical life really are reflective of the emotional world. It's it's really stunning. How did your family respond after you wrote that poem?
Um, I didn't really show it to them, but my mom found out that I got second place, and like I showed it to her. She was like, she wasn't that impressed actually. She was just like, "Oh, that's cool." So
Was it her mom?
no, my mom.
No,
My
like
grandmother, I didn't show it to her. I mean, I don't know how it works.
no, but was it your? Are you writing about your mom's mom or your dad's mom in this poem?
My dad's mom. I had a question for you. So, do you
Yeah,
think more people would benefit from having some kind of outlet like poetry, even if it's not, oh, or some kind of outlet, even if it's not poetry? Like, not just writing poetry, like journaling or anything.
so you mean writing as an outlet?
Like, do you think more people would benefit from having some kind of outlet like that, even if it's not poetry? Like, after what inspires you to write?
Absolutely. I think I think having a creative outlet is really, really important. And I think because it helps us see ourselves as creative people, as people who have things to add to the world. And I think the whole experience of reflecting and paying attention can only make us more sensitive people and kinder to the world around us for sure. Um, as somebody who writes poetry and as somebody I was poet laureate of Woodbury for 3 years from 2021 to 2024. And I mean, it was a huge honor for me because I love Woodbury and I love poetry and was very excited about the prospect of creating opportunities for people to discover themselves, their community through poetry. Um, and I think we all strive to do our best when we create and share. Um, but to know that the fact of your trying and the fact of your creating is welcome and has an audience if you show up with your poem, like to an open mic or an event, I think is an incredible statement of what it means to be civilized, And I think I've sort of witnessed this at open mics. There are people with wildly different points of view, and you just know, and they're sharing that through their poetry, and it's fine. It's who you are. Thank you, and you go away thinking about what they said and what experience they're bringing to the conversation. And I think that's where our hope is because it isn't where the judging is happening. It's where the being and being together takes place for sure. So, Pavan, you mentioned that you were part of a poetry group, or there's a writing workshop at your school. Is there also a poetry group or a writing group that you're a part of?
No, not really. I think they have workshops like every week. I've been trying to go to them, but I can't really. But mainly it's just like something I do in my free time. Not,
Got it.
yeah.
Got it. Would you mind reading another poem for us?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's some context to this one. So it's called marked absent, and basically like in Brazil or Bratislava, they invented like an algorithm that can take attendance for kids in the classroom. Like that's AI that like scans their faces and stuff. Okay. So the teacher lifts her cell phone high, panning it from left to right across a row of faces. The algorithm wakes up and counts. In Bratislava, an algorithm learns to tell cheekbone from shadow, a child from empty space. Fernanda, absent. Her hand already moving across the page. Lucas, present. A girl sits upright, backpack at her side, pen moving, marked absent. She is here, she isn't here. Which one does the system believe? The contract said, recover lost instructional time. The slow calling of names, manual counting. Present, present, present. Each answer once carried a voice. Now the evidence travels outwards from Curitiba, beyond the classroom, beyond the parent who depends on it. An accuracy of 91% out of every 100. 9 are missed. In a group of 30 kids, 3 are reduced to 0. Without moving, without leaving their seats, the seat still warm. It doesn't matter what she says. The algorithm is already decided. The counselor says the camera saw fine. The roster holds, she says nothing. Being present means providing proof, and proof is not the same thing as being seen.
Wow. I think you accomplished in your poem what the Pope accomplished in 46,000 words.
The Pope?
The Pope, yeah, he just issued a big statement about the dangers of artificial intelligence and what it does to our humanity. And you very succinctly captured that. And as a teacher, you these things that promise you recovered instructional time, it's quite something, right? It's because it's not
Yeah.
true at all. And it's just the picture of the teacher with the phone.
Mhm.
Same teacher probably has to tell her students to put their phones away, in this sort of dichotomized world. And the whole being reduced to zero is quite the statement there.
Yeah.
So where did that come from for you? Had you read something, or do you
Oh
see this?
no, it was for a competition. It was like I can search it up. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It was a fighting words poetry contest from like the Pulitzer Center, and you had to like research one of their like articles, and you had to write a poem about it. And that one like really caught my eye, so I wrote a poem about that.
Well, that's amazing, and it really captures your attention to the world you're living in and how you can turn an observation into art. So thank you. Um, would you give us another poem?
So this one is called Village, and it's based off one of Donald Roy Purdy's artworks. So I actually researched him a bit to get some information for this poem. Okay. He entered Germany as a foot soldier with the Ninth Army, 20 years old, carrying a rifle and no art education. Later, he would paint Belgium, the way a man reconstructs, a room he passed through once, not from photographs, but from the quality of afternoon light. On stone, the way the streets there seemed older than they intended. The village arranged not by plan, but by the slow accumulation of people who needed shelter and stayed. He painted from remembrance. He considered memory a stronger surface, more lasting than canvas. Perhaps that's why the buildings hold the weight of a boy who walked through, who survived, who came home to Connecticut and put it down in oil on board, signed it twice, as if once were not enough to claim what he had seen.
Wow. Oh gosh. Oh my goodness. How you describe Purdy's poems is,
Mhm.
the whole notion of memory.
Mhm.
It's so interesting to look at his artwork because
Mhm.
you feel like you're entering into somebody's psychic space. It's so, as you know, it's a very otherworldly,
Mhm.
um, and at the same time, deeply personal experience. So, wow, thank you for sharing that ekphrastic poem. So we've been to Belgium, Brazil, India, Connecticut. It's really been quite the poetic journey, Pavan. So we learn a lot about the world we live in through your poetry. What has poetry taught you about yourself and the world you live in?
Poetry, um, I learned that like even though I struggle to express myself out loud, I can really do it through writing. And it became my safe space, like where I could say whatever I want freely. And that's when I realized I'm actually good at expressing myself, like just in my own way. Also, I have a correction. So Bratislava is the capital of Slovakia, not Brazil.
Oh, Slovakia, Slovakia.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I heard it. I heard it wrong. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I said it wrong. I said.
If so, you've taken us into Eastern Europe. We've traveled the world, and yes, you are good at expressing yourself. And I think it's also, in a world where we're expected to communicate in certain ways, and there are social norms and cultural expectations, to stop and think that there's another way to do it that's every bit as legitimate, and even better because you've got this lasting work that you've created based on what you've written is really, Really, really something. What would your advice be to other people, especially in your age range, who might not think of themselves as poets or think that trying out a poem or submitting to a contest would be their thing? What would you recommend to them?
I would say like just start and don't worry about making it perfect. Like when I started, I really wanted to like get it down the first time. Like just get your ideas down because having something like imperfect is better than like having nothing at all. And you can always go back to polish it later. Like I always felt like I needed more literary devices and like more like better structure. But if you
Mhm.
just have something down, like you can work on that and build up on it. I think the hardest part is just like just starting, so don't overthink it.
Well, thank you for that sage advice, and thank you so much, Pavan, for taking the time to share your poetry with us on the podcast, and for making it part of our world. It's really wonderful, and very grateful to you for your creativity and your time.
Okay, and I had one last question for you.
Okay,
So, do you think the pressure of like wanting to be perfect stops a lot of people from even trying creative things in the first place?
I do. I do. It's like the whole business of submitting to a contest, and and being judged by some stranger, and you think about, what does that even mean? You're basically, you don't know what their tastes are, what their preferences are. It's all very subjective, and I think when people feel stopped by that, they should stop and ask themselves, what do they think perfect means? And I think to see it as having expressed something to the best of your ability right now, and with the intention of being clear and true to yourself, that's perfect. And it may be a better poem in a week when you take another look at it and think about changing some language or adding some literary devices or cutting or whatever the process is. But to accept that the process is embedded with various moments of perfection, and it has to do with being true to yourself and true to the art. I think then you get past that. And I think that all we can do is the best we can do in any given moment. And I'm glad that you got past that and saw the value of poetry as a safe space, and saw that you were actually very good at expressing yourself. And I'm really, really thrilled that that you submitted to the DeCarlo Poetry Competition, and that our judge for that contest, Margaret Hunt, highlighted your poem. I think that she did us all a huge service. So thank you again for that. Sure. Hey, what's next for you? You gonna keep writing? You're gonna look to publish more? What's the plan?
Yeah, I think like most of the poetry contests are almost done for this year. So
Mhm.
next year I'll do.
All right. All right. I wish you every success. So thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
This has been People and Their Poems, presented by Oronog Mountain Publishing. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to check the show notes for more information about this episode. Visit oronogmountainpublishing.com for more information about our services and writing opportunities. And visit peopleandtheirpoems.net to learn more about the podcast.